The Known Realms of Delgea, The Winterweald Chronicles. It's been a while since we did the last episode, and that is because it's been quite busy. Getting married next month, and we've been, been planning the last bits of that. We've had a few sessions of D&D since then. I just haven't had time to come down and record it. So there's been 2 extra sessions. One was a small one was a bigger one. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine these 2 sessions into one video. Just because I don't think the second session really deserves just one on its own. It probably wouldn't be that long. So let me get my notes up and we can go through what happened. In the last episode, what had happened was the party had broken out of jail, or out of a cell, and they'd managed to defeat the initial troll guards that were up there, up on the top level of the tower, and they could hear screaming and what sounded like sort of torture going on down below. So they chose to head down, but this was going to happen in the next session. If you want to hear, obviously, the more in-depth part of that, go watch the other episode. I just wanted to get that quickly out of the way, just so you knew where we were. So they began, and the first thing that happened was the party noticed that the 2 druids had sort of frozen in time while the rest of them were looking while they were looking for the rest of their items, which was in another chest that had not been destroyed by Zunar, which he had done in the previous episode. So Emil and Leaf are 2 druids. The rest of the party look down and they notice that they've sort of been frozen in time. Their eyes have frozen and sort of glazed over, and in the room comes this ancient language. The rest of the party don't know this language. They're not sure what it is, but they watch as the druids get sort of encompassed by and enshrouded by this sort of frozen, leafy kind of magical aura, and they slowly fade into the Fae. Now, the reason that happened, pulling the curtain a little bit, is that those 2 players couldn't make it for this session and wouldn't be able to make it for the session afterwards. So we've had to sort of move them away. They will be back at a certain point, but we've sort of RP'd a little reason why, and we've got a future plan for all of that. So they have gone. So we are just left with our 2. Sorry, let me get my character sheet up. Sorry. We are left with Jerry the Wizard, Luke Motton the Gnome Rogue, sorry, Jerry's a human, and Zunar the Goliath Fighter. That's all who is left, I believe. 1, 2, 3. Yes, it is. So, after hearing these screams from downstairs, they decide to head down, and they head down. So our rogue, Luke Motton, decides to sneak and scout ahead a little bit to see the layouts, and goes down a small corridor and turns into a bigger room, pokes a head round and see 3 set of prison manacles, and in those is Captain Threepwood, the captain of the Nasajak boat, which they originally arrived in, Frosty, his Dragonborn first mate, who looks in a bit of dire straits, and an unknown human. This is Phileas. This is our new player's character, who is a human barbarian custom subclass, which is a pugilist, a fighter, an old style kind of boxer, street fighter kind of thing. He's new to D&D, but you'll see as I describe this, he really took it really well, and I think he's going to be a lot of fun to play with. So he's a former renowned fighter who loves a fight, is a bit cocky, and he sort of he kind of expects people to know his name, basically, because of his fighting ways. Yes. So where are we up to? Yeah. So Loop Mutton is able to use her sleight of hand to pick the manacles and let everyone else, and they have a little bit of RP, sort of introduce themselves. Phileas is like, when asked like who is he, they're like, don't you know who I am? And there's a little bit of banter there, which was fun. They turn to Frosty, who has been quite badly tortured, and to the point where the scales on the side of his jaw and sort of at the top of his neck have actually been ripped out, and he's looking quite in pain, and he's quite subdued because of it. However, the party decide to patch him up, and they help him with a bit of healing magic, and I believe they give him a healing potion as well, and that kind of gets the sort of life back into him. However, the actual scales, while the sores and the cuts repair, the actual scales don't come back. They're so that it's sort of been left with like some scars down the side. So yeah, they discuss their next plans. They basically explained that they've been tortured by this bloody big troll thing, but they don't know where it is. But I think they want to exact some revenge. So they can see two rooms near them on the far wall, and they decide to go into the rightmost one. And in there, it's just a sort of basic storeroom. There's not much in there, but there is a chest which they luckily passed the perception check to notice that it is indeed trapped. Luckily, luckily they have a rogue, Luke Motton, who has been very useful in opening doors and chains and manacles, manages to disarm the lock after a while, and disarm the chest and open the lock, and there is a bounty of treasure in there. They find 750 gold pieces. Some of this is new coin, some of this is old coin. This is basically stuff that has been taken from prisoners, as these trolls have, taken prisoners over the years. They find an emerald, which is worth about 200 gold pieces, an ancient stone key, which I believe Phileas identifies as he believes it to be dwarven, and a journal. And he opens they open the journal. I think Loop opens it, and it looks like the scrawlings of a madman or of a child. It's in an odd language, and it's things like stick figures of like people with horns stabbing people without horns and torture and stuff like that. And they kind of guess that this is a troll's journal, they think, and it's maybe just like, if it was in English, it would be like, we find people, we stab people. It's all very basic, and they're kind of a bit sort of off put by this. And yeah, there's like drawings of like people being eaten and things like that. It's all just quite grisly. Once they've sort of split the loot out a little bit, and I believe Luke Motton, being a rogue, used her sleight of hand to just take a little bit of extra gold for herself before the rest of it was split. They choose to go into the next room, and they choose to enter it very quietly, once again with Luke Motton leading the way, just to try and sneak in. And in the corner, they spy this hulking troll. This is the troll that it was indeed torturing Frosty, and was probably going to torture Phileas and Captain Threepwood as well. He has lent over a chest full of what looks like human bones, and they don't really think too much of it. They just choose to engage, but I believe they do it sneakily, and I think Luke Motton gets off a sneak attack first. Yes, she does. So we allowed that. For anyone who hasn't watched the previous episode, I should notice that I should say that while we've got new players, the sort of even the ones who are experienced for our group, we're not that experienced in terms of D&D. We're quite new. I'm a pretty new DM. I'm still learning things as things go. So if I am getting certain things wrong, I'm hoping to learn from that and get better. But the way we decided to do it was she got a sneak attack off, and then we rolled initiative for the actual the battle that was about to happen. That may not be right, but that's how we did it in the time on the table. We decided, okay, we'll do that, and then we'll check the rules later, because we wanted to keep the game flowing. So the troll turns round after being stabbed in the in the ankles and the Achilles by this little forest gnome, and he turns around and he's got this big chain weapon with a big blade on it, basically like a chain with two blades on the end, which he's swinging around. Frosty and Captain Threepwood choose to stay back. They're still kind of recovering from being captured, and they're not really in the mood for a fight. But Phileas chooses to fight alongside his saviors. Loop has actually coated her weapon with a salve that was found on the previous trolls that actually causes damage to trolls. Now you might be thinking, why would trolls have a salve that does damage to trolls? Well, this salve of troll slaying is used by troll hunters and adventurers alike to obviously try and kill trolls, and the RP behind it is that the trolls, when they have managed to kill their attackers, have basically been taking the salve and storing it away, so it can't be used against them. They're not the smartest people, they could have just destroyed it. The smartest creatures. Luckily, Luke Mottman found one, so she was able to a fair bit of damage on this troll. And yeah, it's a pretty simple fight. Phileas shows up. I actually, at this point, Phileas was still learning his character, and we hadn't found this pugilist class for him yet. In his mind, that's what he wanted to do. But I think he had a battle axe on him, and I think he used that to follow up. I believe Zunor just used his two sabers or cutlasses to attack. Then our wizard Jerry used Melf's minor meteors, something like that, and was able to throw some fiery meteors at the troll, which really damaged it quite badly. And that was then the troll. So I'm trying to remember. This was quite a while ago, and I didn't write the best notes for this point because it was quite a rushed session. He then attacked Phileas, I believe, and then that was followed up by a chain attack where he went to sort of like an area of effect attack, swing his chain blade across the whole group, and a few of them took damage and stuff, and then it was followed up, and I believe it ended with Loop killing the troll. Yeah, I'm sorry that wasn't the most in-depth battle, but it was a while ago, and like I said, it was a rush session because we actually had other plans that night. We just wanted to get that done. So we left the session there. I should also say, in that other chest there was a was it in the chest or was it on the troll? No, I think it was on the troll. Sorry, it was on the troll that's just died. There was a small chain link that had broken up from the weapon, and this actually seemed to have some kind of magical property to it. Loop just popped it in her bag for now, I believe. But yeah, and what else was that? I think there was another thing. I think there may have been a magical scroll in that chest as well. Yeah, sorry, those notes weren't the best. However, let's move on to session 3, which was only a few days ago, which is much more clearer in my head, and I've actually made good notes on it, so it should be a bit more in depth. The first thing the party wanted to do was open the chest, the other chest next to the chest full of bones. So they break the lock, and inside they see a human bound and gagged. This is Tormodin, also known as Tormodin the Serious, and this is our another new player's character who is a wizard. Our other wizard Jerry is not in on this session, and we've role-played that Jerry wants to leave and head to Pilgrim's Progress, the town that is basically where they initially need to eventually meet. He wants to go off on his own, so Jerry, who plays a bit of a crazy wizard, decides to do that. And the rest of the group choose to stay together. And they head out, and the party, they rest before that, should I say, because they've secured this tower. And as they come out of the tower, they notice that they're near the coast, and they're near the cliffs that they were sailing up to on their way to Fairstock. And Frosty uses a spyglass to scout the waters, and he indeed spots the Natterjack just floating aimlessly, kind of close to where the dock is. The party makes the decision to head down there, which is a few hours trek, and they pass without any incident really. They're just following the coast down to where they can get down to water level. So they arrive at First Dock, and this is the way I described First Dock. It's like a like a shelter like that they put on mountain ranges that aren't manned, but they're there for people who might be climbing and they might get into a bit of trouble, or they might just need a place to rest. And people can leave supplies there. They can take supplies as they needed. So it's unmanned, but there is stuff there to help people who need it. So they go into the shack of First Dock, and they find some basic supplies, some oil, some rope, some lanterns, as well as 2 canoes and a rowboat. They pretty much make the decision straight away that they're going to take these canoes and rowboats and they're going to go out towards the Natterjack, and they are going to try and see what they can do on the boat, see if they can maybe get it to land, maybe fix it. Phileas jumps into one of the canoes, and Luke Martin decides to sit on the front of that canoe because she's just a small little gnome, and kind of helps sort of steer through sort of the sheet ice and things like that. Zunar also jumps into a canoe, forgetting that he is in fact a Goliath and is much, much heavier than even the combined sort of a human and a forest gnome. And the canoe drops low into the water. So the top of the canoe is sort of on water level, barely staying afloat. Frosty, Johan, and Tomoden use the rowboat. I should have said that they obviously, when they rested, they had a little bit of role play and they introduced Tomoden. Tomoden's still working on this character. It's the first time he's played properly for quite a long time. So he still developed on why he was there and things like that. But there was just he explained that he was captured by these trolls about a week ago, and he was stuck in that chest. And he believes that the other chest that was next to him full of bones used to be a person, and they were kind of just left there to sort of die, and that would have been his fate as well. So he chooses to stick with them. Just had to jump back to that. So the rowboat gets over there no problem with the captain, Frosty, and Tomoden into it. And Luke Martin and Phileas get there with no problem. Phileas is sort of guiding the canoe around the ice, and Luke Martin's like going, "There's some over there, and go this way, go that way," and they get there no problem. Zuno, as he's been paddling towards Natterjack, has slowly been taking on water, and as he paddles towards the boat, just as he gets to the side of the Natterjack, the boat sinks to the depths. He scrambles on the side. There's some rigging down the side of the hull of the boat, and for a moment he dips into the water about up to his waist, but he does manage to pull himself back up. So he's a bit cold and he's probably a bit shocked, but he's okay. He managed to do it. The way the table imagined it was a bit like that bit in in Pirates of the Caribbean. Just as Jack Sparrow was getting to the boat, he managed to get onto it, but with a little less finesse really, because he does end up in the water. So yeah, they're up on the top deck now of the Natterjack, which is a small. We called it a sloop-like vessel. So it's not a massive galleon, but it's not a tiny ship. It's somewhere in between. And Johan and Frosty sort of assess the damage. There's been some holes blasted into the deck from those comet-like cannonballs that had gone into that initially sort of caused the party to be taken prisoner. But it's not awful damage. It's not like huge gaping holes. There's some scorch marks. The sails are torn, but there's no major damage. There's a few little holes in it and stuff like that, and rips. Some of the rigging has fallen down and things like that. Helm and the rudder are all intact and working. And the party talk about what they do, and they choose. We're going to repair the ship. We're gonna help Johan, and Johan's really thankful for that. Johan tells the group that they should have some repair materials below deck, Obviously, as a ship that sails the oceans, they are obviously going to run into trouble sometimes. So it would make sense that they have repair stuff with them. And they choose, let's go down below deck. In this room, this was the room that the campaign started, and this is where they were traveling where they were all sat around the table talking. But this time they're greeted by quite a grisly scene. The other passengers that were sharing the boat, that they were sharing the boat with, are all dead, ripped apart. There's not even a chance. The first thing that Zunor says is, if they dropped any good loot, it's been taken. There's nothing left on them really. The other passengers that were sharing the boat, are basically just but it's not very easy to identify them. However, they do think that Dystagma, the dwarf that was quite talkative with Captain Johan and the rest of the party, is not among the corpses. So, yeah, looking around, they do actually find, what they need. Spare sail material, some rigging, some sort of smaller rope, some needle and thread, and some planks as well, and some like tar and stuff like that. But before they head up back, Johan asks if they could go to his quarters, which is at the back of the below deck area. There's like a sort of like like a ball kind of thing with a with a door in it, kind of to divide the back up for a space for the captain. Yes, so they agree and they head over. And Johan pulls a key from under the doormat that says captain on it. And he puts the key in and turns it. However, he can't turn it because the door is already unlocked. The party discuss how best to enter the room. And they've got ideas of sneaking in. However, before a plan can be made, Phileas punches the door open, and it opens with a thwack. Bang! But what do they see? Well, within the room, at the far back, they see two tieflings. One male, one female. The male is a blue tiefling, and his sword is in sort of a defensive position in front of the female, who is beige-coloured with bright blonde hair. So they don't look like sort of red, fiery kind of tieflings. And pretty much none of the party have ever seen a tiefling. They're very, very rare in our setting, but they do take. I've taken sort of some of their history and ideas into it. So into this session, and it's not this session, into this. My mind's blank. Why is my mind blank? Into this setting, and the reason for that is I like the idea that they're sort of like an ostracized people on the edges of society. They may hang around human settlements, but it's not something they're not very populous at all. So yeah, they're all surprised by this. The door's just been punched open, and they instantly put their hands up and says, "We're not dangerous. We don't mean any harm." Luke Motton engages in like friendly conversation with them and says, "Who are you?" And they explain that they're refugees. They're just trying to survive. The party asks for the names. They introduce themselves. The female tiefling is called Yavari. The male is called Callius. And it is revealed during this talks that Yavari is pregnant with their to-be child. As the party are talking, they hear this low growl coming from behind them. They turn round and they see it's actually Frosty, who is staring daggers into the two tieflings. He is not happy. And he says, "You should not trust those people." And the tieflings believe the same thing as Frosty, and Yavari even says, put those fangs away, dragon." And there's a sort of tense moment. And the reason for this is I explained to the party, and I wasn't sure exactly how to do this, and this is something as learning as a DM. I didn't want this suddenly to be like Frosty nor the tieflings would suddenly go into history lesson mode and go, well, this is why we don't like each other, blah, 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 this big speech. But I wanted them to kind of have a bit of context. So I had written a little bit um, about what had happened between these two races. Um, so I just said, you know what, I'm just going to describe this to you, and we kind of will RP that over, during the discussions, that these little bits of information came out, as they were arguing. But basically, there was this war centuries ago now called the War of Draconic Flames, and this was done on another realm of reality, not in the sort of human material realm, in a more sort of fiery, hellish realm, which where we in this setting, this is where Dragonborn and Tieflings reside, and this was it was a typical war. It was about empire building. It was about gaining lands and things like that. About resources, magical resources. And it was a very bloody war that lasted many, many years. And it ended with the Battle of Infernal Keep, and the Dragonborns actually shattered the Tiefling stronghold. Infernal Keep was their sort of main city. And it brought an end to the conflict, and there was a treaty signed, the Treaty of Emberfell. And there were some new borders, but Dragonborn sovereignty was pretty much, signed at that point. It was like, yeah, you've got some places to stay, but we rule this area. This has left a deep mistrust and a lot of grievances between Tieflings and Dragonborn. It's not to say all people do. Some people forgive more than others. Some people don't. And this is sort of also what pushed some Tieflings and some Dragonborn into the material realm. There's always refugees and displaced people, and they felt like, oh well, we don't want to stay here, so they moved into the material realm, into Delgea, into Otis specifically. And yeah, so that is this is where all this mistrust is coming from. Like I said, this wasn't just, they didn't pause and then, Frosty pulled out his glasses and his chalkboard and was like, here's a history lesson for us. But I wanted to give them the right context for it. And yeah, so during that sort of arguments and stuff, the war gets brought up and things like that. And it's a bit of a tense moment. However, nothing comes of it because Captain Johan puts his hand on Frosty's shoulder and speaks quietly into him, and that seems to calm Frosty down. And he stays quiet. He's not suddenly just like, oh, actually, I forgive everything that's happened. He's like, okay, I understand. There's nothing to gain from being like this at the moment. The party ends up explaining to the Tieflings that they're heading to Pilgrim's Progress, and this sparks a reaction in Callias, and he pulls out this scrap piece of paper, and it has Pilgrim's Progress just written onto it. And he says, this was given to me by a refugee when we were going through the mountain pass towards the Winterweald. Is this a town we were told we could find safe harbourage here and support? Which they say, yeah, we believe so. They haven't been there yet, but and the party invites them to come along, as this is where they're heading as well. Johan, now happy that the situation is kind of resolved, begins to gather some of his belongings from his ship. From his quarters, should I say specifically. He grabs a small trunk chest, which he throws to Frosty to hold, as well as a small gyroscopic glass ball, which has crashing waves and ocean waters flowing inside it. This is known as a drift globe, and this is Johan's sort of navigation device. Not all ship captains know how to use it. It's a very special and rare artifact, and it allows ship captains who have one, there are not many of them, to navigate treacherous waters, and usually the best captains have them, and they're usually very good captains. Without the drift globe, they're probably very good, sailors as well, but this allows them to go to places where other captains could not. The party try and get Frosty to open the chest and show them what's inside. Johan he's not particularly protective over what's in there. He's not being like, oh no, you can't show him. But Frosty, being so loyal to Johan, which is a story which we will hopefully develop in the future, chooses not to open the chest. However, excuse me. However, Johan ends up giving Frosty a little nod, and he opens the chest and he gives Tormodin a scroll. And it's a scroll of Find Familiar. And Johan says, I'm sure you would find this useful. You could put this into your spellbook if you like, which he takes very gladly. So they head back up to the top deck and they begin working on the ship. And we choose to do a skill challenge, which I believe has been used in different sort of D&D podcasts and stuff. And we didn't do it perfectly. It was kind of just an on-the-fly thing. Zunor, who is played by Three Peak on the multiplayer YouTube channel, also known as Ian. He is alongside me, like we listen to a lot of D&D stuff, and in a lot of ways he knows a lot more than me about it, which makes me wonder why he's not the DM. But no, I love doing DMing and I love learning it. But he was the one who said, well, we could try this, and I was like, we could try this. So Phileas decides to work on the deck, nailing down boards. Zunor works on the mainsails, using his strength to sort of climb up the masts, and he's fixing the bigger tears of the ship, and the big rips, with help of Callias, who is said, "Oh yeah, I'll help you." It's the least we could do, for you helping us get into Pilgrim's Progress. Tormodin uses his magical ability. He knows mending, so he mends the smaller rips and edges and the sort of finer stuff on the main bit. Gets some of the rigging sort of back and fixed like that. And Loop chooses to fix the front sail. She uses her dexterity and with a needle and thread, and does some very intricate sort of work on the front smallish sail and gets it all back together. And they finish and they're resting up, and they notice that, yes, in fact, that the sail starts to catch the wind, and Johan can happily sail it. He pulls up the anchor, which he had dropped before. I didn't mention that before. But once he'd got in, the first thing he did was drop anchor, so it didn't drift anymore. He thanks the team, and they're able to pilot back to the jetty of Fairstock, drop anchor. They all climb down, all successfully, no problems, and they're heading down the jetty back towards the shack. As they're walking, they begin to notice there are bubbles rising from the surface on either side of the jetty, almost like the water is boiling, and then suddenly, I've knocked myself off a bit there. So yeah, the jetty explodes and splinters into a load of wood and water and ice, and from that, a monstrous frost crab comes through the jetty, and they roll initiative. And I put in my notes, this was a really fun but simple kind of battle, and it opens with Zunor taking a shot with his crossbow, but that missed. This was followed by Johan, our NPC, who used Guiding Bolt. He is part cleric, which gave Phileas advantage on his next attack, and he basically punched the crab right in the face, and then he decided to enrage after that. The crab retaliated and attacked Phileas for some bludgeoning damage. However, it was halved due to Phileas being in his raged state. Our wizard Tormodin was next, and he managed to fire off a firebolt right into the maw of the crab, and some bits of his mouth and his mandible were burned and flew off. Luke Martin followed up this by jumping up onto the crab and stabbing at the unarmed bit between the sort of carapace and its arms. She got an initial bit of damage in, but a second sword couldn't get anything done. Frosty then ran straight towards the crab, grabbed each the top and bottom jaw, and unleashed his dragon breath down its gullet. However, Frosty, you may have guessed by his name, is a frost dragonborn. So any of the frost stuff that's kind of hit the outer side of its mouth, that didn't really seem to do stuff. But inside, in the fleshy innards of the crab, it seemed to like frostburn all of it in the inside. Um, so basically, what happened is it was resistant by half to the frost damage, and that's how we RP'd. You know that it still did some damage, but yeah, anything that was hit the outside didn't do anything. Um, and it wasn't looking very well at all. Zunar followed this up by putting the crab to sleep. Zunar is a Eldritch Knight, I think. He's the fighter that can cast spells. I forget what the class is called. I'm sorry. The subclass fighter spellcaster. Yeah, he's an Eldritch Knight. Yeah, sorry. Um, so the crab was falling asleep, and as it was falling asleep, Phileas rolled incredibly well. He was enraged. He had advantage on the crab, and he did this amazing piece of RP. All I said to Phileas was, "How do you kill this crab?" He said, "In my enraged state," he punched the crab in its face, killing it. He ripped off its front arms in a frenzy, plunged the arms into the eyes of the crabs, and then began harvesting the crab for its meat while also eating some. Zunar decided to jump in on this action as well, taking some meat, eating some just raw in front, just in this insane scene. And they turn round and they see the rest of the party and the two tieflings just watching on, maybe in horror, just confused, just like, what the hell is happening? And we ended the session there. Um, it was one of my favourite sessions that I've done, and we haven't done a lot. And obviously, this is a new campaign. We've done some, one-offs, one-shots over the time, and we've been obviously getting new players in all at different times. So, but I feel like we've got like a good little base of players now. So hopefully things will become more regular now, because I really enjoyed it. I think the players really enjoyed it as well, because there was a really lot of chance for role play. There was only a bit of combat at the end just to break things up a little bit, but yeah, I think the players managed to sort of get into their characters a little bit, and I'm hoping the next session as well there'll be more of that as well, depending on what they decide to do. Yeah, so obviously we're all still learning as a group, and it's really fun that it's sort of freeing in a way that we're not completely succinct with the rules. You know what I mean? Like we're still learning, and that in some ways does give freedom, because it allows people to be a bit more creative, I suppose. And then we kind of agree. We are quite good at agreeing as a group, being like, you know what, that was cool. The rule of cool is sort of very important at our table. I'm continuing to learn how to DM. The players seem to be happy with what I do. I'm really happy with my players. I have tried to push a bit more that the importance of playing the character. There are little spots where they metagame a little bit, and they're discussing things, and I've started to call this out now, being like, this isn't a discussion that you would be having while in a fight or something like that. So yeah, we're all learning together, and it was a really good session. The session 2, that was a short one, but we needed to tie off that fine a little bit. So hopefully, I think the plan is the players seem to all agree, and the party seem to agree that they want to head towards Pilgrim's Progress. So in the next episode, hopefully which will be sooner rather than later, we will head towards there. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye now.